These are the top 5 most common relationship myths that are keeping you stuck and why you should stop believing them immediately. Let's get into it. The first myth is that life will be better and you will be happier when you finally find someone. Now, who can honestly say that when they saw a random couple walking in the mall or even new engagement photos, that they've never felt lonely or maybe even a little jealous? I know, it's a common feeling. And one of the many revelations that God gave me was that we will never know true peace until we stop idolizing relationships, until we stop making other things a God over Him. We treat singleness like it's this problem to be fixed, and therefore we go through life desperate to solve it. That's why relationship statuses can become the epitome of our life's accomplishments or even our entire personality. It's seen as this symbol of finally being chosen, and we think that our life will be better or easier when we finally get that. And we do that a lot in life. We think, oh, if I could just get promoted, I would be happier. If I could just win the lottery, my life will be so much better. All my problems will go away. But there will just be new problems. Ask any married woman. There is no destination to reach because you will never have to stop trying. Your effort will just look different. If you see a couple and you feel that spirit of lack or comparison start to creep up in you, I just want you to remember this. You do not know their story. You don't know if he talks to her crazy, if they're violent towards one another. They could literally be the worst couple in the tri-state area, but you over there sad, comparing yourself to them, asking God to bring you something like that, right? And the enemy will do that. He will try to make you believe dangerous lies about why you're still single. He'll put dangerous ideas into your head. No one wants you, especially because you're heavy, or you're clearly not pretty enough. That's why it hasn't happened. These are lies meant to separate you from the unconditional love of God by making you doubt yourself. That's exactly what the enemy did to Eve in the garden. He attacked her mind and made her second guess what she knew to be true. So that's why it is so important that you have to find your happy now, your purpose now, while you're single. Because a man can't make you anything. And he definitely cannot make you happy. The Bible says, he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. As in, you are already a wife because of the substance you have, the wifely mentality that you carry. Not because a man plucks you from obscurity and gives you value. You are already a wife. You're simply a wife in waiting. You lack nothing. You are one of one. You are complete. Your future spouse should be getting your surplus. He should not be filling your cup. Myth number 2 is that love is all you need. You know how I know love isn't enough? Because I love pecan swirls. I know a pecan swirl hate to see me coming. But what would happen if I sustained my entire diet only on pecan swirls? I'd be sick, hooked up to a monitor, sick. My love for pecan swirls isn't a permission slip to over-consume them. Let me say it again. My love for pecan swirls isn't a permission slip to over-consume them. I have to put my love for them in check. I have to have the discipline to know when I'm overdoing the pecan swirls. And if I let my love for them control my actions, then my love actually becomes a prison. Now, instead of pecan swirls, insert the name of that man you won't let go of. And everything I said is still very much true, right? Love as an individual molecule is unsustainable on its own. It has to be bonded with something else to actually revolutionize things. And we see this in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, 4 through 6. That love is patient, love is kind, it is not envy, it is not boast. Here, love is bonded with action. And so if you're experiencing a love that goes nowhere, does nothing, is stagnant, then it's a love unbound, undisciplined, and it's not the love that God promised you. And this happens in our relationships a lot. We stay around people because we love them. We ignore red flags. We romanticize pain. We normalize the struggle. When in reality, the more that we are around them, the sicker we become, the more impatient we become. We forget that we can love people from afar. That's okay. And just because we have history with somebody doesn't mean they have to have the same access that they once had to us. Our love for them, like my love for pecan swirls, isn't a permission slip to over-consume them, to continuously engage with them. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to close the box and step away. Myth number 3 is that physical or sexual compatibility cannot grow. And you've probably heard this one before, usually framed as the try before you buy mentality. And while we all know that Jesus would have us all in a headlock for bumping uglies before marriage, I don't want to talk about the sin aspect of that today. Instead, I want to unpack the idea behind that try before you buy myth and why God's design for waiting is actually so brilliant. When people say, well, what if the sex is bad? To explain why waiting is stupid, what I actually hear is, I do not believe sexual compatibility can grow. And I definitely don't believe that God will provide everything I need. It's really this idea that if you don't test the waters now, you won't know if they're going to be the right fit later. But how is your bedroom life year 1 going to tell you what your bedroom life is going to be like year 15, right? That's a reach. That requires you to assume a lot. And you are going to evolve as a person between now and your final day. You don't think that your sex life is going to evolve too? It's going to look a little different after if y'all have kids or sickness, periods of grief. Chemistry is effortless. Chemistry is that, ooh, baby, what's up? But compatibility is built. Compatibility is what keeps your relationship together. And your relationship will just be a series of creative negotiations, but that's the beauty of becoming one. Why do you think that God, who knows us better than we know ourselves, would have us be so aligned, so excited, so full of peace with this person, just for our sex life to be horrible? God does not play those kind of sick games with us. He would not do that with our faithfulness. We've all lost attraction to people, right? We thought they were cute, but then they said something and it gave us the ick. So why can't we gain attraction to people? The problem is not losing attraction to our spouse in different seasons of life. The problem should be when we stop caring. I can't count how many times I met somebody and they didn't wow me when I first saw them or when I first talked to them. But the more I got to know them, I saw their personality and their athleticism and their intelligence. How I saw them changed. But let's also admit something hard. Our education around sex is just no bueno. Every institution you can think of has misrepresented or hypersexualized this perfect gift from God. And so now we only have this one narrow outlook of what good sex, great sex is supposed to look like. And if our experience doesn't match that, we are quick to write off the person or the relationship. Long story short, our sex expectations are skewed. But here's the good news. Sexual compatibility is something that you can grow. It first starts with understanding what your values are and finding someone who can complement that. Someone who cares about what you care about. The spark is not something that you should be looking for over everything else in the early dating stages. It's necessary, yes, for the next step of exclusivity, but it shouldn't be the reason that you write somebody off in the first 3 to 4 weeks. When you feel understood, secure, and prioritized, not just desired, you'll be surprised how things open up. Here's some reasons how waiting can actually help your sex life. When we follow God's principles and wait until marriage, we weed out people who only value the pleasure of sex over the person that they're having it with, guaranteeing we're matching with someone who sees sex as a sacred exchange and not just a transaction to complete. Also, waiting helps us to avoid turning sex into an idol. It challenges us to connect on a way deeper level. So when we finally do experience that sexual connection, it's a celebration of the love and commitment that already exists, instead of trying to build the love by having sex. So the next time you hear someone say, girl, you gotta try before you buy, remember this. Compatibility isn't just about what happens on day 1. It's about the willingness to create something mutually enjoyable over and over and over for a lifetime. The next myth, myth number 4, is that the right relationship will take no work or effort. The idea that a healthy, happy relationship should be effortless often sets unrealistic expectations. Go talk to some happily married women and I promise you, effortless is not the word they would use to describe marriage. When problems arise, some people feel like, oh, maybe I'm in the wrong relationship because things aren't always smooth or they don't always agree. When in reality, bumps or problems present opportunities to show the love God commands of us. And they also present the opportunity to show God if you actually see this relationship as a gift from Him or just something to do. Many people imagine that when they find their soulmate or their OTP, for my Wattpad girlies, that everything will just naturally fall into place. However, this notion overlooks the fact that any deep connection between two individuals isn't built on magic, it's built on intention. But hear me, I am not talking about no Kirk and Rashida struggle love. Right? Effort does not mean struggle or constant conflict. What I'm talking about is the continuous commitment to being flexible, giving endless amounts of grace, and also nurturing your bond, right? A mutual nurturing. You will know you are in the right relationship when effort to you feels meaningful versus burdensome. The next myth, myth number 5, is that people change. Now, when people talk about someone switching up on them or changing in a relationship, we're often misunderstanding what's really happening. What actually changes are things like behavior, preferences, and circumstances. These things are external things, and they are bound to shift with life. I might lose my job, get sick, or have my emotions impacted by a tough season. And all of those things will affect how I show up. But that doesn't mean that I've changed at my core. What I'm really getting at is that our core values, the things that truly define who we are, they don't change. And if they do, they weren't core values to begin with. You see, core values are what ground us. They dictate our decisions, our actions, and there's a pattern that you can point to. And lucky for you, I have a whole free worksheet for you to see what your relationship core values are, linked below, if you're curious. For example, generosity is a core value that may look different on different people. One person's generosity might look like giving money away, while another person's looks like serving soup at a soup kitchen. Giving money or the serving soup are just external behaviors, but the core value of generosity remains the same. The problem is that many of us fall in love with these external behaviors that men show us, rather than taking the time to understand the core value that's driving them. Even worse, sometimes we assume the core values that's driving them based on what we think it should be. Someone who's always giving money to family can seem like they have a generous spirit, but if you look deeper, you might find that their generosity is tied to insecurity. And maybe they're paying for love and paying for acknowledgement and not really acting out of a core value of generosity. That's why it's so important to have patience and the willingness to go deep. Because I don't want y'all out here head over heels in love with a man because of what he's doing and assuming that it means something that it doesn't. What someone can give, how they serve, what they want will fluctuate. If I know that my future husband has a core value of kindness, when he's not doing the kind things he used to do, my first thought is not going to be, dang, he changed. My first thought is going to be, what in his environment is blocking him right now? And what can I do as his partner to help remove that from him? Most people fall in love with the gifts, not the giver. Which is why people say, oh, well, they changed. They switched up on me. You knew who Pootie was when you met Pootie. Building a happy marriage is to say, I'm not married to you because of how you do something, how you're generous. I'm married to you because you are generous. So if there's weekends where you don't buy me things or you don't want anybody in the house, it's not a problem. And I'm not holding that against you as you switching up on me. And that's why it's so crucial for you to marry somebody's core values, not the outward expressions of them. Are you dating or trying to date, but you're still struggling with your self-confidence or maybe even your confidence in God? Then you are in the right place, boo. Hi, I'm Jessica, and I help women navigate modern dating with a biblical perspective. Hit subscribe and join a sisterhood of Christian women who are encouraging each other while navigating their single season. You know, the Bible said, and the enemy was defeated through the blood of the Lamb and the power of their testimonies. And that's exactly what we do in our community. So if this kind of content resonates with you, let me know by leaving me a thumbs up and check out these other videos that I think you'd love. I'll see you soon.